There's a stretch of road in rural Virginia, about 14 miles east of Staunton, where the county stopped maintaining the streetlights sometime around 2009. Nobody filed a complaint. Nobody asked why. The lights just went dark and stayed dark. I received this account 8 months ago. The woman who sent it asked me not to use her real name. She asked me not to name the county. She asked me to wait. She said at least 6 months before I posted it. I waited 8. Her name for this episode is Mara. I want to be upfront about something before I start. Some of what I'm about to tell you, I've gone over it so many times I can't always tell where the memory ends and where I've filled in the gaps. So if I say I'm not sure about something, I mean it. I'm not being modest. My husband Daniel and I moved to the house on Holloway Road in March of 2019. He'd taken a remote position with a surveying firm, and I was doing freelance medical transcription. We didn't need to be near anything. We wanted space. The house was a 1960s split level. Previous owners had added a sunroom off the back that faced a tree line. Douglas fir mostly, planted too close to the house, close enough that on windy nights you'd hear them scraping the gutters. We'd been there 4 months before anything happened. The first thing, and I want to be careful about how I say this, the first thing wasn't scary. It was wrong. There's a difference. It was a Tuesday, July 9th, 2019. I know the date because Daniel had a call with his project lead at 7 a.m. and I was up early making coffee. The back porch light was on. We always left it on overnight because there were no other lights. No neighbors, no road glow, nothing. I looked out the sunroom window and I saw what I thought was a deer at the edge of the tree line. It was standing upright. Now, deer stand upright. They do it. I know that. I told myself that immediately. I watched it for maybe 4 seconds and then it moved back into the trees and I thought, deer. Unusual posture. Done. I didn't mention it to Daniel. That was July. The second thing happened in September. Daniel had driven into Staunton for supplies. It was a Saturday, early afternoon. I was in the sunroom with my laptop. The screen door to the back porch was latched but not locked. We never locked it during the day. I heard the latch move, not open, move, like someone had put a hand on it from outside and tested the weight. I looked up. Nothing at the door. Nothing on the porch. I sat very still for about 30 seconds, and then I went to the door and looked out. The yard was empty. The tree line was still. I checked the latch. It was cold. Not room temperature cold. Cold like it had been sitting outside in January, in 62-degree September weather. I went inside. I locked the deadbolt on the kitchen door. I didn't unlock it until Daniel's headlights came up the driveway. I told him about the latch. He said, probably a raccoon. Could have been a raccoon. I told myself it was a raccoon. That night, Daniel suggested we leave the back porch light off. He said whatever it was, we were making it too easy to see us. I agreed. I turned the light off. October is when the pattern started. I started noticing it at 11:40 p.m. I know it was 11:40 because I have insomnia and I check my phone constantly, and the first time I noticed it, I looked right after. 11:40. The tree line would go quiet. Not quiet like nighttime quiet. Quiet like someone had pressed a button. Every cricket, every wind sound, every animal noise, gone. Simultaneously. For exactly as long as it took me to count to somewhere between 40 and 60 seconds. Then it would come back. I started writing it down. October 4th, October 7th, October 11th, October 14th. Always between 11:35 and 11:45. Always the same duration. On October 17th, I woke Daniel up. I said, "Listen." We lay there in the dark and waited, and at 11:42 it happened. He heard it. He said, "Pressure differential. Something atmospheric." He's not wrong. That can happen. We looked it up. There are explanations. None of the explanations covered what happened 4 nights later. October 21st, 11:40 p.m. The silence came. I was already awake, already watching the clock. And then, in the silence, something knocked on the sunroom window. 3 knocks. Slow, evenly spaced. Like someone was being very deliberate about the timing. I did not get up. I want to be honest about that. I lay completely still, and I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize. Not a word, not a scream, just a sound. Daniel grabbed my arm. I don't think he was fully awake. After maybe 2 minutes, I got up. I went to the hallway and turned on the porch light from the wall switch. I looked through the sunroom at the window. There was a smear on the glass. Not a handprint. Not knuckles. Something longer. 3 parallel lines, each about 8 inches, pressed against the outside of the glass at a height of, I'm 5'4", and they were level with my face. Level with my face from the outside. The porch is elevated, 3 steps up from the yard. Whatever made those marks was standing either at the top of the steps or taller than I want to think about. Daniel photographed the window. I have the photograph. The timestamp is 11:58 p.m., October 21st, 2019. We did not call the police that night. I want to explain that because I know it sounds wrong. We talked about it and we decided that 3 lines on a window wasn't something we could report. We weren't sure what we'd say. We told ourselves, animal, something with claws, something that stood up. We told ourselves a lot of things that month. I want to stop here for a second. I called the Augusta County Sheriff's Office. I asked about any reports from the Holloway Road area between July and December of 2019. The deputy I spoke to checked, then called me back 4 days later. Nothing on file. No incident reports from that address. No reports from within a half-mile radius. He paused before he hung up and said, I'm reading this directly from my notes. He said, that whole stretch had some boundary surveys done that fall. You might check with the county assessor's office about who commissioned them. The surveys were commissioned by an entity called Valoran Agricultural Holdings LLC. No registered agents, no listed addresses, no web presence of any kind. The surveys covered a 340-acre corridor. The house on Holloway Road was at the center of it. Back to Mara. November. I need to talk about what happened to Daniel and I need to do it carefully because he's not well, and this isn't his story to tell. By November, he had stopped sleeping in the bedroom. He set up a cot in the sunroom. He didn't explain why. I found out on November 6th that he'd been leaving the back door unlocked at night. I came downstairs at 2 a.m. and found it standing open. Not unlatched, open, cold air coming through. Daniel on the cot, sitting up, facing the tree line. I said his name. He turned and looked at me and said, "They're trying to figure out the door." I closed it. I locked it. I asked him what he meant. He looked at me like I'd asked something stupid. He said, "They've been watching how we use it." I called his brother in Charlottesville the next morning. His brother drove up that afternoon. When he arrived, I went out to meet him in the driveway. Daniel came to the sunroom window and watched us the entire time, without moving. His brother looked up at the window, then looked at me, and didn't say anything. The last night was November 14th. I'm not going to describe all of it. I've described it twice. Once to a doctor, and once in a written statement I was asked to provide to two men who came to our house 6 days later. They had credentials. I didn't recognize the agency abbreviation. When I looked it up later, I found a public records request from 2021 that referenced the same abbreviation, a facility in rural Nevada. That request had been denied. What I'll tell you about November 14th. At 11:40, the silence came. At 11:41, the back door opened. I was at the top of the stairs. Daniel was in the sunroom. I heard him say, very calmly, no fear in his voice at all. He said, "Okay." I don't know what he saw. I didn't go downstairs. I locked myself in the upstairs bathroom and I stayed on the phone with his brother until 4 a.m. when he arrived. Daniel was on the cot, conscious, but he wasn't responding right. He answered questions. The answers were just to different questions. His brother drove him to Augusta Health that morning. The back door was closed, latched, no marks, no sign of anything, except the sunroom window. Every pane, every single pane in the sunroom, the inside surface, not the outside, fogged, like breath. Like something had been inside that room, breathing for a long time. In the center pane, in the condensation, there were 2 marks. Not 3 this time. 2. I don't know what that means. I've thought about it for 4 years, and I don't know what it means. We never went back to that house. Daniel has been in a residential care facility in Charlottesville since February of 2020. He's stable. He doesn't talk about that night. When I've brought it up with his doctors, they say he has an aversion to the topic and that pressing it isn't productive. I moved to Roanoke. Different job, different locks. I check them every night. I don't know why I count them. The house on Holloway Road sold in March of 2021. The sale was recorded in the county registry as a transfer to Valorant Agricultural Holdings LLC. After I posted my initial research query on a local Virginia forum, a former administrative employee from Augusta Health reached out to me. She said that in the winter of 2019, there were 3 admissions from that same 14-mile corridor. 3 admissions. all presenting with similar behavioral patterns, all within 6 weeks of each other. 2 were men. One was a 15-year-old boy whose family had been camping in the area. I asked if she knew what was in their files. She said the files were pulled, paper and digital. Someone came and took them. She remembered one thing from the boy's intake form before it was removed. In the box where the admitting nurse records the patient's account of what happened, the section where they write down what the patient says, it was filled in with one sentence. He said he counted them and there were too many.